The weekend after Memorial Day 2026, two micro-budget horror films by YouTube creators claimed the top two spots at the domestic box office, finishing ahead of a new Star Wars movie. Kane Parsons' Backrooms made for around 10 million, opened to 81 million in the US, the biggest opening weekend in A24's history. Curry Barker's Obsession, made for just 750K, was in its third weekend and actually jumped 14% to 27 million, pushing its domestic total past 106 million. Those two films ranked first and second, while Disney's big-budget Star Wars The Mandalorian and Grogu finished third, plunging 70% in its second weekend. Now, this isn't a fluke. It's a sign something fundamental has changed. What we're seeing isn't about YouTube stars breaking into Hollywood. It's about the economics of risk, marketing efficiency, and built-in audiences, forces quietly reshaping the movie business and making the traditional studio playbook look a bit shaky. So what's changed? How did a handful of YouTubers working with limited funding manage to rival mainstream blockbusters? What does this tell us about the future of the film industry, and what happens to the kinds of movies we get? To understand how we got here, let's take a step back. In the early 2010s, most attempts to turn internet fame into feature films flopped. Fred the Movie, a 2010 Nickelodeon special starring one of YouTube's first breakout personalities, was critically panned. Similarly, mid-2010 comedies led by YouTube stars like Shane Dawson or Smosh had minimal commercial impact, reinforcing the idea that online popularity didn't readily translate into box office success. But that started to change in 2016, when David F. Sandberg, known on YouTube as Pony Smasher, turned one of his viral no-budget horror shorts into Lights Out for Warner Brothers, which grossed 149 million globally on a 5 million budget, proving a YouTube-honed filmmaker could deliver a studio-scale hit, at least in horror. And other examples followed. In 2018, YouTuber turned comedian Bo Burnham directed the acclaimed indie dramedy 8th Grade. In 2022, Australian twins Danny and Michael Filippo of Rocka Rocka fame on YouTube made the horror short Talk to Me, a festival sensation that earned 92 million worldwide on a 4.5 million budget. And in 2025, Michael Shank's Tim Tim Fed on YouTube directed Together. By 2026, these scattered successes had turned into a real trend. Multiple YouTubers, Markiplier Fishbach, Curry Barker, Kane Parsons, delivered theatrical hits almost at the same time, which was impossible to ignore. Each spent years perfecting their craft on YouTube, hooking viewers, iterating quickly, and building loyal fan communities. When they moved to feature films, they brought those skills and pre-existing audiences with them. There's no single formula for how they succeeded. Each had a different game plan, so let's examine the three standout cases: Iron Lung, Obsession, and Backrooms, to see what they did. First, the self-financed route, Markiplier's Iron Lung. Markiplier Fishbach's Iron Lung, a survival horror film based on a video game with a 4 to 5 million budget, was financed completely out of his own pocket after studios said no. He took on all the risk, but in exchange kept full creative control and any profits. Basically, he bet that if his massive fan base showed up, the movie would be a success. Initially, Iron Lung was slated for just 60 screens, but Markiplier's fans weren't satisfied. They actually called theaters to demand more showings, expanding the release to 4,000 plus screens worldwide, practically unheard of for a self-distributed indie film. And the result? An 18 million domestic opening, far above expectations, and about 50 million globally, roughly a 10x return on his investment. After its run, Markiplier even bypassed traditional streamers, releasing Iron Lung on YouTube's rental platform to keep it accessible to his community. Second, the indie project supercharged by his studio, Curry Barker's Obsession. Barker, a 26-year-old YouTuber known for comedy sketches and horror shorts, made Obsession for just 750K. After finishing it, he shopped it at the Toronto Film Festival, where a bidding war broke out. Focus Features snapped it up for 15 million, guaranteeing profit for Barker even before the theatrical release. Blumhouse later signed on to help market it. Focus did something bold. They opened Obsession wide immediately, rather than a limited rollout. It debuted with 17 million, much higher than predicted, then shocked everyone by climbing about 40% in its second weekend, driven by stellar word of mouth. By the end of week 3, Obsession had cleared 100 million domestic and has surpassed 330 million worldwide, making it Focus Features' biggest hit ever. We're looking at a 400x gross to budget multiple, a figure that still sounds unbelievable. And finally, the studio-backed online phenomenon, Kane Parsons' Backrooms. 20-year-old Kane Parsons turned his viral Backrooms short, a massive YouTube sensation, into a feature film with early backing from A24, Churn Entertainment, and producers like James Wan and Shane Levy. They gave him about $10 million to bring the creepy liminal space concept to the big screen. Backrooms went fully wide on opening day, and audiences responded like it was a known franchise, delivering an $81 million domestic opening, a record for A24, and has since soared past $300 million worldwide. Backrooms is A24's highest-grossing film to date and has made Parsons the youngest filmmaker to reach #1 at the domestic box office. Now, having looked at each film's journey, let's dig into the common factors behind their success. One major factor, their ultra-lean budgets. Spending only $750K to $10 million on production meant the stakes were low and the odds of profit were high. Even modest box office revenue could recoup costs, and actual hits would yield enormous returns. And the numbers speak for themselves. Iron Lung delivered a roughly 10x return on its budget. Backrooms about 30x so far, and Obsession has a return of 452x by surpassing $330 million. By contrast, a big studio film costing $150 million might only manage to make 2 to 3x multiples in theaters. These YouTuber filmmakers essentially eliminated financial downside by keeping spending so low, and gave themselves nearly unlimited upside. Plus, a small budget grants creative leeway. There's simply less pressure, you can experiment more freely if you're not sinking a fortune into production, and these films preserve that scrappy energy and creativity of their creators' original shorts precisely because they were made on the cheap. As producer Jason Blum, who built a business on micro-budget horror, has noted, you don't need a giant budget. YouTube has democratized filmmaking in a way nothing else has. And he's right. Thanks to the internet, someone with a camera and an idea can reach millions. And these movies prove that going lean and daring can pay off. Another key element is the fan communities these creators built online. A typical original film starts at a disadvantage. Nobody's heard of it, so studios must spend tens of millions on advertising to draw up interest. But these filmmakers started with a passionate audience in place, which is like jet fuel for a release. Markiplier, for example, knew his fans would rally behind Iron Lung, and they did, to the point of calling theaters to ensure it played in their area. That fervor turned a tiny release into a nationwide one, and Iron Lung smashed expectations. With Backrooms, analytics indicated that 22% of its huge turnout was directly fueled by Parsons' base, a testament to the built-in hype a creator can carry. Essentially, these fans acted as an army of volunteer publicists. They didn't wait for commercials or billboards to tell them what to see. They already knew, and they spread the word themselves. Iron Lung and Obsession soared largely on the strength of its YouTube audience, Twitter trends, TikTok, Reddit threads, you name it, rather than blockbuster ad budgets. Markiplier promoted Iron Lung heavily through his channel and streams at essentially zero cost. Similarly, Barker used his own YouTube channel to pivot his comedy followers into horror fans for Obsession. Focus then smartly amplified that by piggybacking on the film's organic buzz with creative marketing like its spooky text hotline that 70,000 fans signed up for. And the result was Obsession exploding into a viral sensation, with more people showing up on weekend 2 than on weekend 1, which is virtually unheard of. These stories are also shifting how filmmakers and studios think about releasing movies. Normally, a first-time director's indie might get a slow, limited rollout or go to streaming because their audience is uncertain. But Obsessions and Backrooms showed that if interest is already built, you can go wide immediately and succeed. Both films launched in thousands of theaters, like major franchise films, and found their crowds easily. The crucial insight: theaters can turbocharge online buzz. These films succeeded because they were theatrical experiences that young fans wanted to share together. Far from being deterred by the cinema, Gen Z actually showed up in force when the right movie came along. Obsession had about 75% of its opening audience under age 25 who treated it as an event with their friends. In essence, the internet hype didn't replace the theater. It drove people into theaters. It's a reminder that, given the right context, the big screen can still be the ultimate stage for a cultural moment. And ultimately, theatrical success today isn't just about known stars or established IP, it's about whether a movie has a head start with an audience. And when it does, theaters amplify that excitement and turn it into real-world results. So, what does this mean for Hollywood, and why should Hollywood care? Well, we're seeing the rise of a new talent pipeline. For decades, Hollywood found filmmakers through film school, festivals, industry connections. The classic path was make a short, get into Sundance, attract a studio's attention, land a deal, and then build an audience after the fact. But now, more and more filmmakers are coming through YouTube instead. Instead of first getting a studio shot and then finding an audience, they're building their audience first, then getting those opportunities. And that reversal matters. Say you walk into a studio meeting with a loyal community already behind you. You have leverage. You can essentially say, my fans will show up for this. And if you make me compromise what I'm doing, you risk losing the audience you're paying for. A first-time filmmaker almost never has that kind of clout in the traditional system. And studios are starting to recognize the power shift. A24, Blumhouse, Focus, Universal, they're not signing YouTube creators as a gimmick, but because a filmmaker with a built-in audience is a completely different kind of risk than without one. Curry Barker's next film, Anything But Ghosts, is set for release through Focus, and he's attached to direct A24's Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot. A sequel to Backrooms is reportedly on the way, and another YouTuber, Dylan Clark, who runs a popular horror channel, has been tapped by Lionsgate and Blumhouse to direct a new Blair Witch Project movie. And it gets even more interesting. Markiplier didn't need a studio at all for Iron Lung. He went straight to theaters with it, and he's not the only one to have figured out this shortcut. In 2023, Taylor Swift bypassed every Hollywood studio to release her concert film directly with AMC theaters. Her logic was simple. Why involve a middleman when you have an audience that will show up? Swift kept 57% of ticket sales, and the film grossed $262 million worldwide. That move sent a clear message. Theaters don't have to rely on studios if a creator can fill seats themselves. And in this new landscape, audiences wield more power than ever. Markiplier's fans didn't just buy tickets, they organized. They individually called theaters to the point of those theaters thinking those people were bots, and took Iron Lung from 60 screens to over 4,000 with zero studio involvement. And consider Backrooms, an obsession, outgrossing a $165 million Star Wars movie. That's audiences choosing originality over franchise familiarity when given a real alternative. That choice is data, and studios ignoring it do so at their own financial risk. So, which genres and creators would follow this path next? Well, horror is a natural fit. You don't need a huge budget to scare people. Fear is mostly psychological. But you could imagine it in any genre where the creator's voice is the primary draw. For example, I'd watch a rom-com by Amelia de Moldenberg of Chicken Shop Date without a second thought. The audience is already there, her voice is distinctive, and a rom-com doesn't require a massive budget. As for specific creators, YouTube analysts Colin and Samir argue that it's not just subscriber count that predicts success. It's how deeply the community cares. Participatory audiences, fans who will actually take action, not just passively watch, are the ones who turned Iron Lung from 60 screens into 4,000. That's the signal Hollywood is still learning to read. So the talent pipeline is changing, the distribution model is changing, and when both change at once, it changes the kinds of movies that get made too. This was a really exciting video for me to make because I think we're watching one of the biggest shifts in how Hollywood discovers talent. I'd love to hear what you think. Is YouTube becoming Hollywood's next talent pipeline, or are these just a few exceptional cases? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if there are other parts of the movie business you'd like me to explore, I'd love to hear those too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.